Here we go. This is the At the Buzzer podcast, episode 2, with G and Mo Money on the Mo Money Sports Network, the sports network for the sports fan. G, how you doing this week?
Not doing too bad. I been appreciating the change in weather. I've been appreciating chance that this is the time of year that basketball starts coming around again. So I start getting a little bit excited. I can feel it in the bones. I can feel it in the air. The talk gets a bit more serious. The energy around fandom starts to come back, and realize how much I missed it. And yeah, so I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I got October 24th circled on the calendar. It's coming up really quick. The Lakers got the Denver Nuggets on banner raising night, and unfortunately, that game's not in LA. That's going to be in Denver, I believe.
Ooh.
And if we had won the title, that game would be at the crypto, I guess, or the crypt as they call it.
Yeah. Man, that'll be a tough first game for the Lakers. I'll say that right off the bat. What a game, though. What a game that will be.
As my big brother would call it, it's a statement game.
Yeah, and LeBron shows up for those usually, but so does the Nuggets. Uh,
Well, the Joker's no joke himself. I'll just put it that way.
I actually have a
But
note.
one of the things that I wanted to get to here was these new rules for resting the stars of the NBA. As you know, I had a pretty heated take last week when it came to teams resting their stars and how we spend our money to go and see these guys play and they don't show up, which is weird.
Here's a take. It's theft, right? I just heard Richard Jefferson call it theft. He's like, they're stealing millions of dollars by not showing up. They're stealing from fans. They're stealing from the teams. Because they're often not injured, right? They just haven't
The
conditioned
TV
themselves.
networks.
Yeah. So I was like, damn, that's a
That's a
hot
take for
take.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So you're not alone. I can echo that and just I was convinced. Yeah. So do you think these rules will do anything?
I think if you want to hit him where it hurts, hit him in the pocketbook. Absolutely. When you're talking about fines that could reach up to $1 million, and now you have to be available for national TV games unless you're legitimately injured. I like it. I think it's a step in the right direction. And I think this is what the NBA fans deserve more than anything else. The
Yeah.
fans deserve this.
Yeah. Yeah, you could call it criminal, you could call it lazy. It's a mix of things that were way outside of the fans' control, and to show up to a stadium and have none of the stars playing after you spent your money, yeah, that's just a feeling that nobody wants. So any effort the NBA can make, I think, to get on top of that is good, but like to let it go this long and for it to be this light of a thing, because there's all sorts of loopholes, there's all sorts of ways that you know it can be affected for this player, that player, only these all stars, only this, that. And we just know these guys, they're going to hire a team of lawyers to figure out the loopholes, and they'll figure out how to filter money. And I'd like to see a bit more. I'd like to see some like suspensions of those two players if they rest them, because it's the team's thing, but maybe the players are rested or suspended with pay, something like that.
Well, the thing is, you're taking away from other fans then if
Yeah.
you suspend those star players. So
Yes,
that
that's true. That's the hard.
you're running into a whole different issue there.
Yeah. So do you see any way out of it other than the pocketbook?
I would like to see. Okay, here's an idea. What if you suspend the coach for the next 2 games?
Mm.
I mean, you heaped on Ime Udoka last week, and if you suspend him for 2 games after resting, say, Freddie Van Fleet on a
Mm.
game night, that could have impact on the Houston Rockets in their season.
Hmm. They what did they do to John Morant for the second punishment?
25 games.
So 25 games, not because the gun was illegal, but because he broke the conduct rules, right?
Well, it was based no, well, yes. It was basically because Jaw had a meeting with the commissioner, Adam Silver, and he said, I learned my lesson, blah, 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 same old spiel.
He had the
And
fingers crossed, eh?
not even 2 months later, he did it again. So Adam Silver, I have my issues with Mr. Silver, but
Mm.
I commend him for laying the hammer down on John Morant.
Yeah, I would just like to see some sort of equivalent punishment for players or teams that decide uh, to set the example that they're setting. Because I think the core issue with Ja was he's setting a bad example for kids. He's not listening, and he's embracing a lifestyle that's both dangerous and just a really bad look.
Well, it's not. Well, the thing I hear in every interview that concerns Jaw is he's not that guy, and he's posing as that guy, and
Hmm.
that can be sometimes more dangerous than actually being that guy.
100%.
And
It's too big for
and
your
I'm
britches type of thing. Yeah.
I'm choosing my words very carefully on this topic in particular because I want what's best for Jaw, and
Mhm.
what's best for Jaw is to get his mind right and get back on the court and get back to focusing on basketball and making your 235 million.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, I don't condone what he's done, but let's hope it's not a three strikes and you're out situation.
Yeah, yeah, because I think it's quite an intense punishment that really stands out as maybe the most significant punishment the NBA's put out there. But I would let me put this as a hot take: the players that are sitting there, like maybe Kawhi is a bad example, I don't know, but there's some guys that are pretty young that don't have a ring on the fingers, that don't have clout to be able to take off games, and are just doing it because they can. They're that mid-level superstar or whatever it may be. To me, that's as disrespectful and bad look, and as carrying a gun and being a little poser. So if the NBA is worried about looking bad and having their fans um, concerned about the image, concerned about the reputation, then they have to do more, I think, than just a little slap on the pocketbook wrist with these millionaires, because it's like that's what the money's for. That's what they use the money for, is to pay off the fines. you
Yeah,
know?
then you're messing with the integrity of the game.
Mm, yeah.
See, that's the thing. If you say, okay, let's take Kevin Durant for example. Let's say Phoenix decides, okay, Kevin, you're not playing tonight, but we'll put you back in the lineup Friday because that's a nationally televised ESPN game. And then the NBA goes, no, hold on,
Mm.
we're suspending KD for 2 games because you rested him. Well, now you've just given KD 3 nights off,
Yeah,
and
and
all
that can get
KD's
really
gonna
messy.
and all KD's gonna do is sit back, smile, and cash his paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
so it
see the
almost
problem with that there?
big time. So it's like you can't really touch the players, um, can't touch the
No, and
integrity of the season, yet they're able
that's
to
why
manipulate it, right?
the other way I could see it working is maybe you tell KD he can't play in the or not the play in the in season tournament for the Suns and keep
Mm,
them disadvantaged that way.
yeah, like, yeah, I would think if you put a de-incentive for the team as a whole that affects your ability to move.
But then again, the trick with that is the in season tournament is also regular season games,
Yeah,
so
it gets super
it's a
messy
real
outside of it. Yeah,
it's a real tricky thing. That's
man.
why I kind of went for the Ime Udoka thing, because if you take the coach out for a couple of games, maybe they win those 2 games, maybe they don't. Maybe that's something you can experiment with.
Hmm.
I don't like the resting stars thing any more than you do, but I think it's a tough one to get around.
Yeah, it's one of those things that everybody's kind of probably going to look past until it becomes a serious like fans losing their minds because they just bought another blank ticket and you know the stars didn't play and all right they paid the fine and moving on and it's the fan that still goes home brokenhearted and sad and less money whereas the other guys don't even notice the money gone. So
Well,
yeah,
what
I
I
would
feel bad
understand.
for I feel bad for the Slovenians that came over to watch Luka play, and they only watched him for a quarter because the Mavs were tanking that game on Slovenian night.
I
Look,
couldn't believe that. Talk about
ta-
reputation, man.
talk about a hit, and that's my whole deal with the roundabout with the play-in tournament. The way it was sold to me by my basketball friends, and they are knowledgeable, and I respect them, but I will say I've been against the play-in from day one.
Mm,
I don't like the play in. Don't
okay,
watch the play in. On principle, I don't watch the play in.
interesting. Okay.
And they told me, well, Mo, this is gonna keep that 11, 12 seed from tanking. This is gonna keep teams from purposely losing. And then we got the Dallas Mavericks, who are in a play-in spot, mind you. All they had to do was win one of those 2 games, and they're in. And they tanked it. So that defeats your whole argument about how the play-in's gonna the play-in's gonna stop tanking because it doesn't.
Yeah, and
And
God,
people
that was
will tell me
bad.
that's a special circumstance. Don't care.
Yeah, that
Don't
was.
care. It defeats your whole argument.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, there's a couple examples that we've seen that where the Chicago Bulls, I think, were in a similar situation and accidentally ended up in the play-in and almost beat Miami, which would have been an interesting turn of events. But I guess there's the only thing you could say about the play-in is it introduces more variables, which can be interesting sometimes. But will it make the game? Will it do its purpose? You'd have to weigh out how many different times it did what, you know. But the Dallas one was pretty embarrassing. That was one of the worst games I've ever seen, especially given the circumstances. I know which one you're talking about, the Slovenia night one. And as a fan of just basketball, I was looking at that going, this is a bad look for
like
everybody
like
involved.
it's like it's one thing to do it on a random Tuesday night in Dallas when you're playing the Charlotte Hornets and
Yeah.
it's November and nobody's gonna remember this game anyways. It's another thing to do it when you're having Slovenia night at the end of the season, when you're in a play-in spot, and you don't let your Slovenian star, who's everybody is there to see. Let's face it, that's Luca night in
Mm.
Dallas, and
Didn't play the
they
second
just
half.
basically said, "Thanks for the money. You get 1 quarter, and we're sitting them the rest of the night."
Oh, and he didn't look like he really had a problem with it. Like he looked just checked out. So obviously there's some personal issues going on with the superstar there and the team. Like they might surprise people coming around because it was so bad at the end of the last season there. But we'll see. Mavs were really good
And
again.
they said we did it to protect our pick. You had the number 10 pick in the draft. Come
Like,
on now.
yeah, that's
Really?
insane. Like, no, nobody's ever worried about a top like number 10 pick. Like, oh, we gotta get it. you might have a top
I mean,
5
I,
guy and not have a win,
I
you know?
you got a shot at a ring or a number 10 pick. Which are you taking?
Right? With a
Forget the
transcendent
fact.
player.
Yeah, what are the odds you're gonna wind up with Wembanyama at the number
Well, and with, I
with
mean,
that pick?
you got Luca, who they keep saying, is it like LeBron? Is it like MJ? He's right up there, and it's like the dude couldn't even get in the playoffs or play in when it mattered. Could you imagine MJ in that role and just kind of petering out like that? It's like you can't put him anywhere near that category. I don't want to hear that ever on TV again of Luca being compared to some of the greats when you go out like that.
That's what I mean. There used to be a time when the NBA regular season meant something, and it just seems like the NBA's regular season means less and less every year. As the years go by, it seems like the NBA regular season means less and less.
Man, yeah, you're telling the truth. It's the hardcore truth of it, and I don't know if there's anything that will change that because the money is so big and the money fit doesn't incentivize the regular season. So if the money somehow incentivized regular season a bit more, and the only way that would happen is shrinking the season, but it's such a greedy
Well,
now,
it's like
now, now,
it.
right?
I was watching this thing about, and of course, it happened to be. I think it was Shannon Sharp
Mm,
who said something like, "Jordan never played anybody," and then Stephen A. was like, "Hold on, he played the Sonics, 64 win team. He played the Suns with Barkley and Johnson and Marley. He played Magic in 91 at the age of 32. You keep saying that. Who did he play that was on the level of Steph, KD, and Clay?
the
He
mailman,
he played he
right?
played guys
Oh yeah.
like this. Like when Stephen A. broke it down, he made Shannon look. And I got nothing but love for Shannon Sharp. I'm gonna say that before I say this, but he made Shannon look like a doormat when he
Yeah.
broke it down. Just because he's like, I have numbers. Because the one thing I'll respect about Stephen A is he's loud, but he's facts over feelings.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I'm a lot of the same way. When I say something, I mean it. And when I
Mm,
get something wrong, keep the receipt. Show me. I'll own up to it.
yeah, and it's
But
usually the
tell me
best
I've been
case.
wrong. Tell me I've been wrong. Tell me I've been wrong on anything I've said this evening.
Mm. Well, I'll have to go back to my notes, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's just one of those things. I feel strong. Like if you can't decide who the top 16 teams are in 82 games, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for that, and there's something to be said for these superstars too that get to kind of run the show, and I think are setting the example of, oh well, the regular season doesn't matter. It's really leading by example, right? Because somebody has to be setting a trend, and if all the top guys are setting the trend, well, you're going to kind of fall in line, and I would hope to see some some new energy out there where I think other players could maybe follow suit. Like Booker seems like a pretty hardcore player, but he's nothing compared to Murray and Jokic, in my view, who are about the modern version of some of those classic guys that you're describing, because they treated everything like it mattered, right? The whole regular season mattered. Those guys have never considered probably what a rest game was, Murray and Jokic. It's like that is the
You
winning
know,
formula.
the Black Mamba, he said it best when he said, "What the heck is load management? It's your job to be in shape to play these games. It's your job to play these 82 games. That's what you get
Mhm.
paid for."
Exactly. And speaking of Stephen A, what does he always say is the staying ready versus getting ready. There's guys that go into training camp to get in shape and get back in the groove. And there's some dudes that turned up the notch during the summer and never turned it down, but kept their body somehow as healthy as ever and are coming into training camp stronger, faster, better, stronger than they finished the season, right? Uh, those are the special ones, I think. Staying ready. There's less and
Well,
less.
I think that applies to every walk of life because even with this podcast, I was looking for a a running buddy, if you will, for like the last 3 years since I started the channel. It just so happens that when I came this way, and it was a happy accident, I found somebody who was willing to co-host with me, and that's all I needed, and we're off to the races.
Man, yeah, I mean, all of life began with some sort of happy accident, right?
That's what that's what you mean about staying ready, though. I was always ready to do this podcast,
Hey, that's it.
and that's what I mean. These NBA players aren't staying ready anymore.
Hmm. And a few are, and they're standing out, right? Like you see how I was just thinking back to the Nuggets playoffs. Did anybody even make them look like even close to beating them? Like it to me, it looked like they just steamrolled. And when I look back in the memory banks, all I remember is pretty much a steady-handed all the way through. Never once doubted they were
They
going to.
never felt like they were in trouble.
Yeah, and that's something. Like that's impressive, and they're still not really talked about. But uh,
Oh, because they're in Denver. The NBA, the excuse my high pitched voice there. The NBA has this thing against West Coast cities.
yeah,
If you're not the Lakers, if you're not the Lakers out west, you don't matter.
yeah. And when you look at the TV numbers, it is laughable, right? Like Denver's, like if you're doing the graph thing, and it's just like Lakers on a global and national scale. So it's like I understand why the attention is skewed that way, but when you have a championship team that's coming back with all their same players and they're just like
They
just
could
handled
repeat.
everybody. Yeah, I think they're going to repeat because nobody has the answer for two guys who stay ready and don't get into any sort of drama or load management or off court shenanigans. Are just like, uh,
And
pretty.
if anybody deserved a night off during the season, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's Joker.
Yeah, yeah,
He doesn't
man.
take many, but if anybody deserved one, it's him.
Compare his games to Anthony Davis in the last 3 seasons,
Yeah,
right?
had to pick the Laker, eh?
Right?
That's
I'm
cool.
just saying he's a him, Kawhi. There's some big stars that are like,
Well, we call Anthony Davis street clothes for a reason.
oh man, did you? That was this season when he went down and they took him out in the chair, and Charles Barkley was just like they couldn't handle it because he got bumped or something in the head, and it was just like they're like, street clothes, street clothes.
Even that, like, I don't mean to be the back in my day guy, but remember when Scotty got that big lump on his head? Remember that? And he kept playing.
Oh man,
He
yeah.
got knocked around, and he had this big lump on the side of his head.
Who is that?
Scotty Pippen, when
Oh,
the Bulls made that run, and
yeah,
I'm just comparing toughness, man. Like I
man,
said, I'm facts over feelings. I'm telling you right now. And the fact that Anthony Davis said once the Lakers get eliminated, he doesn't touch the ball for about a month. What the heck are you doing, man?
right. And that's kind of the inside scoop on some of these guys. It's like they're okay with coasting at this point, and they've made a lifestyle decision that's probably extremely frustrating if you're a teammate or a fan or somebody that was under the different impression when he signed that check. It's like, wow, yeah. If I were Denver, I'd be laughing right now because I invested in the right guys, right? Didn't go
And
flashy.
that's what you talked about last week when it's funner to watch those guys compete and win than it is to have a bot team compete and
Definitely.
win.
Definitely.
Speaking as a Laker fan who's bought a lot of championships over the years,
They've
but
earned it for you.
I gotta give the props to the guys that earn it. Right?
Yeah.
That's
It does take a certain selflessness, right? And I think going back to some of the earlier conversation is like who can step into those role positions, um, and maybe make those sacrifices to be a part of the team thing. And the Chicago Bulls and Scottie Pippen are the ultimate example, right? Of guys that could put their ego in the right place, maybe, and sort of negotiate it just enough, so that it could work while it worked. Because I'm sure it was like walking a tightrope, but Phil Jackson figured something out with those guys that I don't know. I was running through all the different teams and former championships, and I'm like, there's nobody
well.
that bought
Here's
in
the
like
thing.
that.
Here's You ready for the key to winning a title, an NBA
Mm,
title, or any professional sports championship?
let's have it.
If your coach can get the lead dog to fall in line, your road to a title becomes a lot easier.
Mm, yeah.
Look at Pop and Timmy.
Great example. Okay.
Look at Pop and Timmy. And that's pretty much that could be the end of my discussion right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
mean, Phil
mean,
Jackson, Kobe and Mike, it's like they fell
if
in,
you
you know.
if you can get the lead dog to fall in line, your road to a title becomes a lot easier.
Hmm.
But I will tell here's a hot take for you because everybody in the sports media seems to love this guy as a head coach. Here's a take for you. Ty Lue is the most overrated coach in the NBA.
Mm, that
And
is a
he's not
hot
even in
take.
the
That's
league.
spicy.
Huh?
I said that is a hot take. That's spicy. What and run them? How come? How come?
How come? Okay. You want facts? Here's facts. They won the East the year before Vlad was fired. They were
Okay.
number one in the East. They were number one in the East at the All-Star break when Vlad was fired. Ty Lue gets all the credit for that ring, and nobody realizes that they were already in first in the East at the time he took the job.
Oh yeah, a bit
That
of an
Cleveland
yeah,
team, that Cleveland team was stacked. Oh, the Warriors got hurt.
yeah.
There were so many factors that Ty Lue benefited from on that team that go overlooked by everybody.
Hmm.
Everybody.
Yeah, you never hear
And he
that.
gets credit for that ring. And not only that, G, he went 0-7 the next year before he was let go.
Really?
He was 0-7 before Cleveland let him go the next year.
Wow. And yeah, he hasn't been able to do anything with the Clippers, anything. And I mean, that's probably a complicated he said, she said, this guy, that guy fault, but he hasn't done anything there to say, wow, what a coach.
So I have facts to build my case against Ty Lue. I don't know how you feel about Ty Lue, but maybe that'll shed some light on him for you.
I'll say my overrated coach, Nick Nurse, the double
Oh, I
man.
like that.
And this is coming from a Raptors fan, diehard loyal fan. Happy Nick is gone. Happy he was there for the championship, but I think that was a case of uh, the coach getting in line behind number one dog in a sense, where it was like the dog told him, "I know which way we're supposed to go. I got this one," and the guy going, "Okay, I won't mess this up." And I think I think it was a bit of that, and Nurse got to ride in on Dwayne Casey's coattails, who had built a core culture outside of the players, which was more about the organization. Nick Nurse didn't have anything to do with that so much as Dwayne Casey, and then Kawhi comes in at his peak, gets to do whatever he wants, gets to decide when he plays, how he plays, who plays with him. Yeah,
Here's
he kind
another
of had the
take.
LeBron thing going there, right?
Here's another take. I think Steve Kerr is the exact same way as Nick Nurse.
Came in when Mark Jackson already had the team built.
I feel I will defend Mark Jackson till the day I stop breathing, because the fact that that man does not have an NBA job right now is absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. You got JJ Redick going, and love to JJ, great podcast, but you got him going for head coaching jobs while Mark Jackson's sitting at home. It's like, yeah, okay, okay.
That league does the league doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're not shelled by the NBA or anything, so we can say what we want. And Mark Jackson deserves an NBA job for the work he did in Golden State. And again, he does get credit, but it's not as much as he deserves. And Steve Kerr lucked into the greatest job. You or I could have coached that Golden State Warriors team to a title. Let's be honest here.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And I'll give Nick Nurse credit for being at least a good coach enough. Like he wasn't probably dead silent, but uh, yeah, Ty Lue, I can't think of anything too significant that he would have pulled off. And Steve Kerr, the same. You had two transcendent players at the top of their game with a leader on the floor, Draymond Green. It's like not a whole lot to coach, you know. I'll be
What do you
curious.
think? What do you think of this upcoming season? I know we talked about sleepers and stuff last week.
Mm.
Who are some of your favorites going into this NBA season?
I was thinking about the best off-season moves in terms of like that shifts the dial on a team in a
Hmm.
significant way. But I was also thinking about just who's going to actually make some noise in each conference as we get closer to the starting point here. And one team we didn't
By the
mention
way,
was Sacramento.
just a quick plug here. We will have a season preview podcast before the season gets going.
Yeah, yeah, do a straight up
But
official one. Yeah,
as you were saying, the Sacramento Kings.
yeah. I think Sacramento Kings are going to be a sleeper in the sense that they were really good last year, surprised people, but they have the core ingredients that we're talking about, which is the chain of command being super clear. Like there's no confusion like where the top player is. There's no confusion what the coach is. It just goes right down the thing, and that seems to be the winning formula if you can get everybody on the same page, bought in on that basic level. And so Sacramento has that. They got that Mike Brown, and they've got I can't even remember his name, but the little point guard guy that's just
De'Aaron Fox.
yeah, he can cook. Like he can get going. So I'm curious. They got the European
Uh,
passer.
Here's my question though. Here's the question mark that I have with Sacramento, and maybe I'm just overthinking this too much. Is can you have the same quality season you did last year when you can't sneak up on everybody?
Mm.
When everybody starts circling you on their calendar and saying like I said earlier, this is a statement game. We got the world champs on night one. That's a statement game. But now all these teams out west and even the ones out east are like, we gotta pay attention to the Sacramento Kings. Can you have the same quality season when
Mm.
everybody's preparing for you every night and you
That's a
can't sneak
great.
up on the rest of the league anymore?
That's a great question. I think they can personally. That's my first instinct is they have the goods just because of the leadership and having a couple of players that can really push the pace, push it both ways. That actually have some mobility, have youth, have flexibility, and aren't head cases in the ways that work against them. Right? Like sometimes head case is good, but when you have too much in different directions, it doesn't work. And that was Memphis's problem. And I think Sacramento's clean, and they're only going to increase in terms of efficiency. And they were a scoring monster last year. So yeah, I'm curious. It's a good question. But they're my West pick, kind of as the strongest, probably going to go under people's radar and do some damage.
Can
Uh,
you go under people's radar 2 years in a row?
in the small market system, it is easy enough, right? It's like Denver will still be under people's radar to an extent. It'll be, oh right, we're playing the champs. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And does anybody have an answer for Jokic? Just on a quick aside, has anybody even shown a little bit of defense that has proven to
Well,
work against him?
here's the thing. Jokic is unlike anything we've seen for quite a while. And what I mean by that, at least, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong by all means, but he's so versatile
Oh yeah.
that when you do make an adjustment to Jokic, he'll make the adjustment right back, and you'll have to figure it out again. If you need 25 from Jokic, he'll give you 25. If you need 12 assists, 13 assists from Jokic, he'll give you that. You
Mhm.
need boards, he'll give you 8 of those too. It's
Mhm.
he adapts to the game better than anybody I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's not even that's just accurate. You know, it's very accurate. Uh, he's the Zen master.
Because the double because I was watching games in the playoffs, and when they'd bring the double team, he'd just pass out
Yeah,
to
through his
somebody,
eyes in the
whoever
back of
was
the
open.
head.
Yeah, like it was ridiculous. And he hit a circus shot last year that I saw. It was a 3-point shot. He just threw it. He threw it up. It didn't even look like he was looking at the hoop, and it went in.
That was the one that stole
And
the Lakers' soul, right?
he, why do you think I remember it so well?
Oh yeah, because it haunts their dreams. Yeah,
That
yeah.
was the moment I knew the series was over.
Man, yeah, that was the turning point because it was like, damn, they're chipping away. They won't go away. These Lakers, they're chipping away. They're getting calls. They're chipping away. Reeves is hitting shots like, and then Jokic took over at the end of that quarter, and then he hit that shot, and it was like everybody was like, all right, series is over. There's still
Yeah, it was.
seconds
It
left.
was. It was a very demoralizing thing to
Yeah,
have to watch that shot go down.
yeah, because that's just the one last thing on top of an already overwhelming assault, right? It's like somebody had just put everything into you could handle and then sent in like a missile. It's
And the Lakers were trying. The Lakers were battling for that
NBA
tight.
was
But
even
when
trying
that
to help them.
that shot took the wind out of the sails for sure.
Yeah, so I don't think the league anywhere, maybe Kawhi is the only other equally basketball IQ, competitive, no nonsense, uh, and then has the
Yeah, but
talent to do it. You
the
know.
difference is Joker's available to play.
Hmm.
That's the big difference.
And yeah, I'd be so curious if the Kawhi Paul George thing is gonna turn into something because they've got the new arena. He's been resting for 2 years. Got some
Paul
runtime in.
George is the most overrated shooting guard in the NBA.
He's got the Jason Tatum thing to me, right? He's like he's got golfer energy. I'd say he's chill. He's cool.
I like that term, golfer energy.
You know? Nothing wrong with some golfer energy as a golfer, da 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 da. But when you're needing to be a bit of a killer,
I wish we
oh,
were a high production like studio where every time you said that it would just have a golfer energy like layout just blinking away.
just
Golfer energy alert. That'd be
yeah,
something.
yeah. You just not getting too excited, not getting too down, just efficient, good. It's like,
See, I'd rather have the guy on my team that's mad that we're losing than the
mhm.
guy that's like, okay, we're down. No big deal.
Yeah, when the attitude.
I want the guy with the fire in his belly that doesn't accept losing.
Man, I was just listening to a guy. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about having to play a role player position and then seeing the team tank, and they're like, "No, keep playing your role position. You can't start getting your numbers." And he's like, "Wait, so I have to tank and continue to play a mediocre role that's below me?" how is this a fair deal and stuff? And so it's really interesting to see how different players respond to these challenges of the teams that they're
Well,
on.
that's the thing. Like, I tanking bothers me to no end
Yeah.
because your fan base still pays their $85 to $100 a night. Your fan base bleeds your team colors even when you don't deserve it.
Hmm.
And you're gonna go out and you're not even gonna give maximum effort.
Right? Like you're going to intentionally use less effort to win the game that's your only job that you're getting paid millions of dollars to do, and it's to tank. And that's where a guy was saying he'd be crying at night and stuff because he felt like he had no purpose. And they're like, oh, shut up, you make millions of dollars. It's like, yeah, but I'm a human being too that cares, an
That
athlete that cares, you know.
that would be like me, um, coming to you and being like, okay, we're gonna do this podcast, but we're only allowed to hit, I don't know, 30 views, and then we just gotta take the video down. That's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, why are we even doing this then, right? There's other ways to make money or content and da da da. And I think that's a lot of
Th-
players. They're like, why am I even doing this if it's going to be a, an S show like that where it's tanking and
that's what I mean. Like, when I saw the features that gave us an extra hour and gave us these cool new features that we use, I want this to be the best podcast it can possibly be. I want to be, no disrespect. I want to be Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith. I
Mhm.
want those numbers. That's
Yeah,
why we do this.
yeah.
So that we can build a brand and build a podcast that hopefully people enjoy. We're
Mm.
not out here just talking ball for the sake of talking ball.
Mhm. It's to know your purpose and actually kind of be connected to it. And when the stakes are that high and you have that many people watching, it is shocking when you see guys checked out and unable to tap into that purpose, you know. Scotty Barnes, even last year, was just checked out for a young kid that has the world ahead of him. It was just brutal to see him check out, you know.
It happens in all sports too.
Mm.
But especially in the NBA when there's only 12 to 15 guys on the roster, you notice when people check out on your team. Like,
Yeah.
I can always tell how the Lakers season's going by how LeBron's my barometer. Okay, if the
The
Lakers are playing
LeBronomer.
well, if the Lakers
Almost got it.
by the way, subscribe to the channel if you're still here because we're 43 minutes in already and I haven't done that yet.
Ooh, jeez.
But
We haven't got some key.
LeBron's my barometer. If we're playing well, you get the intense look in the eyes. You get the we're going for a championship LeBron.
Mhm.
That's the LeBron I love to see.
Oh man, when he showed up in the black suit for the scoring title game, it was like, oh yeah, he's
Yeah,
getting it tonight, right?
yeah, it's a done deal. But then LeBron has the other side of the coin where he's like, red suit, I'm drinking my wine. We're 6 games under 500. We're not gonna make the playoffs. So I'm
Mhm.
just gonna be the bougie LeBron.
Yep.
I hate that LeBron. I don't want to see that LeBron. I
It's
don't want to
true.
see it because it means something has gone terribly wrong in our season, and
Mm,
it means we're not going to the playoffs.
man, that's it. Yeah, that's a really good way to be able to tell where a team is at. And again, it's coming back to the leader thing. He's as your leader goes, so does the rest of the team. And he's a really good barometer for that. Someone unlike anyone
As you
else.
can tell,
So
I watch a lot of Lakers games.
man, we all do because they're always on. It's I think they actually have an interesting team, but for the
Austin Reeves is my guy, though. I'm always a lunch bucket guy. I love the lunch bucket guys, and Austin Reeves. won me over last year.
Man, I got into it with Austin Reeves because I had a hot take that was very negative around him. I was like, nothing against Reeves. I was like, the only reason though that we even know his name is because of the position that he's in. If he played for Oklahoma City, where he was struggling to get a second position on you know, the floor for this or that, I was like, you wouldn't know his name. I just don't think you would. So everything is so circumstantial. And it's not really to take away anything from Reeves. It was more to say, this is how special LeBron is, and this is how special the Lakers' circumstances are, because you could put in a guy that could go one of two ways. He could just be average and kind of coast, or he could fit that position perfectly and suddenly be putting in 20 points a game and having those numbers that he had. And I think it's a testament to him staying ready. But it was also, I think, a little bit, and I've changed my opinion, but I was arguing in the past there that it was more about the situation and circumstance than him being ready. Um,
I could see how it would look that way, but my comparison as far as Austin Reeves goes would be like as somebody who should fit that role but doesn't, as well as Austin Reeves does, is Grayson Allen. You know, that feisty pit bull that just he's got that dog, but he doesn't seem to fit that role the way Austin Reeves does.
because he's not pure
You know what
dog. He's
Austin
got a
Reeves?
bit of a, Grayson's got that trip thing. He's got that little greaser in him. He's got a, he's got shifty energy somewhere still there. He's not pure dog. Dogs you
He's
can
not
trust.
pure dog. But you know what I like to think of Austin Reeves as is controlled chaos.
Mm,
That's how I look at Austin Reeves. Because if you watch him play, he looks out of control when you
mm,
first watch him play. But if you look at the film, he's he knows what he's doing. There's a reason he drives to the hoop. There's a reason he takes a 3-point shot. He's not a Kyle Kuzma who will just throw it up and try to get numbers.
mm, yeah.
You know, that was my knock on Kuzma. He would always shoot you in and out of ball games.
Yeah, and that's not going to stand for with LeBron, and kind of like Jordan Poole and the Warriors. It was like, who do you think
Oh,
you
don't
are?
even get me
Yeah,
started
we
on
don't
the
need to
Jordan
own that.
Poole thing.
We don't need
I can
to.
go an hour and a half just on the Jordan Poole thing alone.
Oh man,
But
same. But for the sake of Reeves, he did represent a pretty solid stay ready and do some crazy stuff that nobody had seen before, from a dude that
yeah,
looked like him, played like him.
and when he first started playing this well, I thought he was going to be another Jeremy Lin who played
Mm,
well for like a month and
totally.
a half and then disappeared.
That's what I
But
was saying. Yeah.
everybody went crazy for Jeremy Lin, including myself. I'm not gonna lie, I loved Linsanity, man. I thought it was awesome,
Yeah.
but
And
it
yeah,
was a short-term boost.
yeah. There was that guy in
But it got
Brooklyn
him
who did
paid.
that too. Yeah, and it shows how talented these guys are, right? Like when I was watching some of these Bandits games, like there's dudes putting in 30-foot shots, guy in the face, cash. It's like, how are you not playing at a higher level? But I realized the biggest difference between those guys in the NBA is, well, athleticism and consistency. It was their ability to show up time and time again through the little season that they have and be able to put in some of those shots and stuff. And it was like, oh, okay, there's flashes of it, but you don't see it all the way through. And with NBA guys, it's obvious that give them the opportunity and they're going to be ready for the most part.
Yeah, and okay, here's another question. Who's gonna end up with the best record in the NBA? Who's gonna end up with the worst record in the NBA? Let's play best and worst here on the At the Buzzer podcast.
I like that. I like that. Best record in the league or in the conference?
Best record. Well, let's do it that way. Let's go best in the West, best in the East, and best overall.
Mm, okay. You want to kick it off? What you got in mind?
I think that the best record in the East, as much as it pains me to say this as a Laker fan, I think it's going to be the Celtics. But hear, but hear me out because I think they're a regular season team. I think they're built for regular season success.
I think
I think
you're
they'll be successful. I think they'll be the best team in the East. I do think Denver's going to have the best record in the West and the best record in the league again.
really okay. Um, okay. Do you want to do your bottoms first, or should I do the top?
Oh, bottom, sorry. I love you, Orlando, but your magic ain't going anywhere.
Really, a lot of people saw them going into the play-in this year, but saying
I
bottom, eh? I can
I
see that.
just I just think that Orlando's been at the bottom for so long. I watch a lot of basketball thanks to my league pass,
Mm.
and until you can prove that you can do it, um, it was between them and Detroit, and I thought Detroit would have a better year than Orlando. So
Man,
I think Orlando is gonna have another year of suffering. And
if you,
again, please, if I'm wrong and Orlando comes out and they finish like third in the East, play this tape back to me. I'll own it.
yeah, I mean, with the experience from the World Cup, Bankero might have some, some. He might have stayed ready. Yeah, I'd be curious. He's got a few pieces going on, but I don't see Orlando doing too much. We'll see. We'll see. They're a team I've never really enjoyed watching, and still don't, and just don't like the vibe, don't like the jerseys, don't like the players.
Bottom in the West. That's a bit tougher because the West is really competitive.
Yeah,
The West
East is a
is
gong
the
show.
West the West is like it's so tough. But if I
It can
had to
go
pick
so many ways.
if I had to pick somebody out of the West that wasn't gonna do or was gonna finish at the bottom of the West, gee, it might be Utah.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, they've kind of
It
set
might be
themselves up for
Utah.
that. Yeah.
Cause even though they got off to that hot start last year, they fell off. And it Orlando and Utah would be my two bottom feeders.
Mm, okay. I like those. Those aren't the typical ones I think that would be uh, easy easy picking. So I like those. Those are good picks. Top of the East. The East is a mess. The East is really difficult. I kind of like your pick of Boston, but I'm gonna think about it for a second.
Well, like I said, I
Um,
think Boston's built for regular season success.
yeah, they really are, and I feel like Milwaukee's almost a little bit the same this upcoming season. And we'll get to the Giannis talk maybe later, but um,
Yeah,
there's something
I
going
just
on
thought
there,
about
right? It's uh, it's a vibe that I don't know if they could stick with that through the whole season, but if they do as they do, I could see them just being a tough team to beat night in, night out. You know?
well, see, here's the thing with actually I'll let you get your picks out first and then I'll get back to the Giannis thing because I'm
Okay,
gonna
so
go for a while.
hey, he's going for a walk too, apparently, right? Right on down to Toronto, I think, with Dame. That's for another time. Um, at the bottom of the East, we got. I hate to do it to Detroit because I want to see something good happen there, so I won't do it to Detroit. Um, and
Notice we both kind of backed off our Detroit picks there in the East.
yeah, you want to see good things happen for certain teams, and they're one of them, right? I I see Charlotte, but I don't know anything about Charlotte, so I'm going to hold off on them. Um,
Well, they got LaMelo. He's pretty good.
I think if the
And Michael
Bulls,
Jordan's not the owner anymore.
true, true, yeah. Speaking of MJ, I think the Bulls are at a very tough crossroads. They've been riding that 9-10 purgatory. They're not bottom, they're not top, they're not even mid, they're lower mid. And I think something falls off here. I think either DeRozan checks out, or they lost Lonzo, and I think that was kind of the kick on a very delicate situation already. Like, they needed everything they could possibly have, with Vucevic being unable to play defense or anything like that, and a former Magic. Uh, it's a tough situation over in Chicago, and I grew up loving Chicago, so this is a sad one, but I think they're headed towards the bottom, and I don't see anything turning around there other than a huge different season from Levine, because he seems like he's taken the Jordan Poole route rather than the Steph
Well,
Curry.
see,
You know?
even for me, I apologize to Orlando because I want to see big things come out of Orlando. If any fan base deserves some success, it's those Magic fans. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah. So, and then in the West, I think Sacramento. I'm going to go with them. We're on the theme today.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
they're
like
built
that.
for it,
That's stepping out on a ledge there, my friend.
because they know that's their bread and butter too, and they need every advantage they can get coming into the playoffs to compete with some of these more scary superstar things. So if they can get home court advantage again, they're now not coming into this completely fresh, but they have incentive, I guess, is the biggest thing. They've got the same team that won a ton of games, and they've got incentive uh, to prove something, and it's their best shot. Um, I don't see any other team having as much incentive to get that number one spot, or the offensive firepower like they do. So I think Sacramento's it may be a ledge pick, but I don't think it's that risky overall. Bottom, hate to hate to see it, and I'd like to see the opposite happen for Ja Morant, but I see Memphis falling off a cliff. It's the headless
I
horseman,
do too.
right? It's
I
got
do too. And here's why. I think those first 25 games without Jaw is going to set the tone for the whole year. And I think the Grizzlies are going to give up by the midway point of the season, and they're just gonna go over the overboard. That's it.
yeah. The only way out for Memphis is to find a fair trade for Ja, and restart with a different franchise player. But it's almost one of those guys you can't trade. It's the Zion situation. It's like he was going to be your MJ. You can't really trade him. Who are you going to get?
No, because see, you're stuck in the Zion situation because you want to trade him because he's done nothing in New Orleans, but
Mm.
you can't trade him because if you blossom somewhere else, then you're the guy that traded Zion Williamson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But it's a big risk right now for whoever takes him. Um, but I think, yeah, doomed either way is Memphis, right? They're a small market team. They don't have a ton of other pieces outside of their core starters there. That Jared Jackson looked like he struggled
I
a fair
noticed
bit.
neither one of us said San Antonio.
They've got some reasons to not be in last place,
Well,
right?
that was my debate with Memphis. I think they're gonna fall off a cliff, but I don't think like Jaw's gonna come back, so they're gonna win their share of
And
games.
he's
So I
Showtime,
don't.
right? Like he can bring the Thunder back like this and everybody back on his side, but I just see it as a mess overall.
Oh, it is a mess in Memphis. Trust me
Yeah.
on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see Sacramento overall with the highest wins, but I think that's for the win-loss type of thing. And when you brought up,
Do you see
yeah,
Sacramento beating Denver in the finals? Do you
no,
see
no,
Sacramento?
no.
No, you just
I think Sacramento maybe gets to the semi West finals again. Like, yeah, semi West.
The second round.
Yeah, solid second round would be cool for them, I think, and would be a success because you're not beating Denver, and you shouldn't beat Phoenix with the squad that they have, and the Lakers you shouldn't beat. So you're looking at number 4 in the West at best. Um, Golden State chomping at your heels, like it just you take your wins in your regular season, but I don't see anybody
So
beating Denver.
you see the Kings like I see the Celtics. They're going to be a great regular season team that gets a lot done, but they're probably going to be bounced in the second round. That's exactly
They'll
why
probably
I
be
said
golfing together. You know, they they'll be hanging out. They'll be chilling.
they'll have that golf energy.
That's right. They got the Mickelson vibes.
That'll be the code word. If you're still here an hour into the podcast, just write golf energy in the comments so we know you've been here this long.
There you go. Yeah, and you know who doesn't have golf energy is Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo and some of these East characters that I
Oh,
think are
I love
all
these guys.
you know these guys are supposed to be the best players in the league. That I look at their teams in the East overall, and it is the biggest gong show of a conference I've seen in years. I
Well,
don't see a
see,
solid team.
here's my bone to pick with the Eastern Conference, and particularly Joel Embiid and Giannis. And I'm gonna go with Joel Embiid first because I got less to say about him, and I got more to say about Giannis than I do uh, Joel. But Joel is the type of teammate I'd love to have, but I'd hate to have him on my squad at the same time.
Mm,
Because he wants to win so bad, and I want that guy on my team so much. It's so important to me to have people that want to win, but at the same time, he seems like the kind of guy that would throw you under the bus to save his own skin.
and wouldn't remember your name, like would pretend to not even remember your name at a function type of thing. Like he could
Yeah,
be a whole dude, I think, in a bad way, right?
like that's how I feel about Joel Embiid. I'd love to have him on my team because he wants to win so badly. But when things go south, you're gonna be the one thrown under the bus. That's why nobody wants to play with LeBron because when things are going good, he gets all the credit. When
Mm.
things are going bad, LeBron takes none of the blame.
Yeah, Embiid is a perfect example of that. It's like the exact same formula, and he's got more to prove than anybody. And I see him as maybe the there was a reason I chose that as my background for thing there of him trying to block Kawhi's shot, and it goes in, and you
Yeah,
see the face difference, right, from horror to just this focused look in Kawhi's eye, and then just the emotional, overwhelming for Embiid. But I think since then it's sort of shown that he's more ready to complain and whine about the reason he lost than to just shut up and win. Like
and the other thing, nobody cares that you were the MVP. You whined
tried
your way to an MVP. Good for you.
Yeah, and
That's
then
all it
lost in
was.
the second, right? It's like, man,
They gave you the MVP so you would shut up. That's exactly what they did. And you
yeah, I'd
can't
be
convince me
embarrassed.
otherwise.
I'd be embarrassed if I
Huh?
was I'd be embarrassed if I was him and got that MVP last year and then did that in the playoffs while
Well,
Jokic
see
went and
that
pantsed everybody. Like, come on.
that's the thing. Like you can whine for an MVP, which everybody does. So I'm not holding that against Joel.
Mm,
But you whined for 3 years for one MVP, and
mhm.
it's not right.
Yeah, especially when you can't carry a team past the second round. Like, it really is a lot of attention and respect given their way for a team that's done nothing, even close to nothing. Like with Nick Nurse coming in, I heard they're doing a training camp outside of Denver. This is for Philadelphia 76ers. I can see
Hmm.
why he's doing that. He's taking Embiid into the mountains where the air is thinner. You know this. You get your cardio up right when the air's thinner, and that's the ultimate place to go. It's nobody wants to play in Denver and stuff. But I don't think Embiid's gonna respond to that type of challenge. Like I don't see him wanting to get in better shape and doing playing more minutes and playing longer regular season. Like I think that's the right path, but I don't think he'll take it. You know?
Joel,
Hey,
what am I gonna do?
speaking of disgruntled stars, I have 3 written down here that I think are on the move either some point this season or early free agency type of thing next season. And it's Giannis,
Okay, can
Dame,
I? Oh,
and Luca.
it's Giannis. Giannis is on that list. Okay,
Mhm.
Giannis, Dame, and who?
Luca.
Huh?
Luca.
Luca. Oh, okay. Can I tackle all three of those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do Luca first because he's the easiest one. I think you're wrong.
Mm.
I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think it's not because of the money. It's not because of loyalty. It's because I think enough teams have seen Luca play long enough that they know what he is.
Mm.
And Luca is, I will even say this, Luca is one of the most phenomenal offensive players in the league. History will determine whether or not you can say of all time. Right now, I'm not willing to go that far.
You know what?
But, but defensively, absolute liability. He complains about everything.
Chemistry gets
He thinks he's a smooth talker hitting on all the female referees.
bought.
I just don't think Luca's that. I just don't. You were saying earlier or last week, you said there's a lot of people that are nice pieces to have, but I wouldn't build my franchise around them. Luca's a
Mm.
nice piece to have. I wouldn't build my franchise around him. And I know I'm going to take heat for that in the comments because that's going to seem crazy. But I look at him a lot like I look at to a lesser extent, a Kyrie Irving, where he's a great talent, but he can't channel his energy properly. Look, he
Mhm.
came in at 25 pounds overweight last
Man,
year and had to play himself into shape. You
ex
shouldn't have to play yourself into shape.
not when you're
And I
getting
love
paid
watching Luca
250.
play.
Yeah. You know who he reminds me of? Is a,
Who's that?
Slovenian James Harden, you know? And I think that's his best case scenario at this point is, like, just being
The
this
guy that gets
offensive
numbers but
legend.
no rings?
Yeah, that's his like, unless he goes through a radical
You're frozen
personality
there, G.
change. Oh, check, 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 check.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. I just hit the play button again. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
We're
Yeah,
back now.
Luca's he's a liability in all the ways that you said, and I think there is a harsh reality to that. That only teams that are looking for box office numbers in terms of money and stuff, not championships, should be interested in
It's
him,
like
right?
it's like Westbrook, man. Nobody wanted him. I don't know why LeBron wanted him.
Mm,
But
yeah,
now I'm gonna go to Giannis because I've been waiting for my Giannis rant. So here it is. When a reporter asks you if your season was a failure when you went out in the first round when you were the champs, that's a failure, Giannis. That
yeah.
is a failure. When you're expected to go further, that is a failure. You do
Mm,
not get the right to question this poor reporter about did you get a promotion this year? No, and is your job a failure? You don't. They're they're not comparable, Giannis.
mhm. And
They're
his whole
not
thing of
comparable.
yeah, trying to make it like it's not all about winning. This is about but it's like yeah, everybody knows it's just a game, da, 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 but what we're talking about right now is if it all matters really a ton and you failed and how does that feel? But he's trying to reframe it in this other way that is like a control freak thing. And I think, yeah, it didn't work in his favor. Everybody just kind of scoffed at that. And we're like, yeah, no, that's a failure, you know?
And I went off on Dame last week, so I'm gonna go off on Giannis for the exact same thing. He said he'd be a Milwaukee Buck forever. Now he's changed his tune and said, as long as we're committed to winning. You don't get to do that with me, Giannis. I keep receipts, buddy.
So, so
I
I heard.
remember when you said
What if they stopped being loyal to him? Right. So
that's different.
that's the question that somebody brought up with Dame was, hey, what if it wasn't so much Dame saying that? What if it was an equal sort of thing where they were like, hey, we're pivoting. We couldn't win with you here. So we're going to start rebuilding with this guy Scoot and stuff. And he's going, well, that's not what I committed to. I committed to a winning team. So I'm not committed to the same thing anymore. So we're actually not loyal to the same thing because you're not loyal to me. Da, 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 da. And I could see it maybe in the Giannis case that if Chris Middleton's not working out hard anymore and um, the coach isn't putting in 20-hour days or whatever it is that they do and stuff like that, and Giannis is the one that's putting the most hours, the most this, he's probably going to be like, no, 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 no. There's supposed to be somebody else pushing me. There's supposed to be an energy around this going, we need to do this like our lives depend on it. And I could see it being tough to maintain that energy for a franchise. That requires a lot.
Then don't say the words forever.
Yeah, that's the thing when they get into some of the maybe just
Like
overselling certain things, eh?
when you
Um,
like I said, I keep receipts and by all means keep receipts on me too. I'm not backing down from anything that I said. I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again. But you when you say like I can't say this podcast is gonna go on forever. I can say I enjoy thoroughly doing this podcast, but
mm.
you'll never hear me say it's not gonna end because life happens.
Yeah, it's sort of what's the agreement, right? What's the clarity? And if he was telling everybody over and over again, "I'm a buck for life. This is what it's all about. No matter what you guys do, I'll be here." Then that's different because he's saying, even if you guys start tanking, even if you guys start rebuilding, I'm here for life. But if he
This
said,
was right after he got his ring when he
"Yeah,
started the whole I've got my championship. I'm gonna that was his purpose for re-signing the deal.
yeah, yeah." Yeah, I can see it both ways on it, and I can see him being a tough guy of high expectations. Like, I could see him being a workhorse that demands as much or more than everybody, kind of like what you're saying about LeBron, where you might love him as a teammate, but you also might hate him sometimes because he's screaming at you to get into practice earlier and you're a freaking adult and you don't need to be screamed at, but he's going to be screaming at you. And, there could be some stuff like that where the level of competitiveness isn't around him anymore. And he's like, I want in with the dogs. And on that side, I want to see him with the dogs too. I want to see Giannis surrounded by, angry, lethal players that are ready to win a championship. And if that's not on the Bucks, then I hope that he does get traded because
But
he's special.
here's my counter to that. Because like I said, I keep receipts. So,
Mm.
but here's my counter: is Giannis had an opportunity to go and play with everybody else, and you remember what Giannis said? Giannis said, "I don't need to be friends with them in the off season. I don't need
It's true.
to be with these guys. I don't need to play with these guys. This
Yeah.
is
What was
my
that?
legacy."
Yeah. Yeah, it seems he's got a big personality, probably bigger than some let on, right? Everybody's like, "Oh, he's such a nice, funny guy," but he's probably a big personality behind
See,
closed doors.
that's the thing. Like Giannis has said, like, I don't need to be friends with these guys. Because they asked him about LeBron and Chris Paul and Chris Bosh and all
Right.
the the Fab Four, right? And he's like, I don't need. He's a throwback.
Mm,
And granted, he probably shouldn't have used the words forever, but he's like, I got my ring. I'm staying.
yeah. And he might
And
end
if
up
I'm go-
staying.
and if I'm gonna hold Dame to that standard, I gotta hold. be honest to that, Stan. I gotta be consistent, man.
Yeah, yeah. The only question I would ask through any of that is, are they being as loyal and are they meeting their agreement on the other side? Because yeah, it would suck if you were Dame and suddenly your team's deciding to tank the next 4 seasons to finish your career. Like that,
After
you kind
paying
of,
you $250 million.
yeah, and that's what it always comes back to. It's like, hey, we threw the money at you, and it's like, yeah, but when I signed the deal, you said we were going to compete for a championship, and I was going to be the core piece. And yes, you're going to pay me, but we were going to do something, and that's why I signed with you, because I could have signed anywhere. But you told me we were going to be a competitor. But signing Jeremy Grant and drafting Scoot Henderson doesn't tell me that you want to be a contender. Uh, so are they being loyal to the agreement? Right.
Look,
That's the only question I would ask.
here's my thing though. Let's say let's say that we were, I don't know, let's say we were Barstool Sports, for example, right? And I'm the CEO at Barstool Sports. And I come to you and I say, hey, gee, I got $2.5 million for you to run this podcast with this Mo Money character, right? And G goes, wow, that's $2.5 million. And then he says, well, G, we want you to hit 1 million views every week. Oh yeah, that's fine. We can do $2.5 million for 1 million views. And all of a sudden G comes in at 850,
Mm.
850,000. They're still gonna pay you your $1 million because you signed the deal.
Mm.
So whether or not management is underperforming,
Mm.
you signed the deal.
True. True. Is there no out if they break the deal? Would be the question then. Like if Dame starts or if G starts doing 250,000, 100,000, is there no stopping of you paying? Is there no out in that clause? Could you,
Right.
you
I
know,
I see what you're saying there.
is like if they
Like if
just,
the numbers tank to an unbelievable number.
yeah, like if Portland's dead last for the next 4 years, what a weird experience that would be being a player that's as good as anybody that would have to sit there and just put in nothing games after nothing games and try to win 10 games a season. That would be like, whoa, I didn't sign. There's no amount of money worth this, right? Like, uh, yeah.
It is interesting the thing you showed me about Dame earlier this week though.
And which was that? Oh
The
gosh,
the
yeah.
the picture.
So that was that day. And then today I saw a wonderful headline saying Dame to Toronto question mark on the Zach Lowe podcast for ESPN. So it's got some level of insider slash professional observations on it. And the trade proposed was Pascal Siakam heading to Portland and Dame heading to Toronto, which I speculated on a year and a half ago for a few different reasons. That Masai's been playing a
Yeah.
long game. He plays long games, so he's waiting for this or Giannis, if not both. You know,
Well, here's my thing about Dame. And I don't mean to burst your bubble,
he's
but
not going to
remember,
Toronto. Yeah.
no, no. I was gonna go there, but I was gonna point out a fact to back me up because I like to do that on this podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
And when KD was a free agent, there was a lot of hype that he was going to Toronto for whatever reason. I don't care what the reason was.
Drake.
There was a lot of hype for it. And they were like, oh, he's going to Toronto. I said, I will bet you anything. I will shave my head bald if he goes to Toronto. That's how
Yeah.
little faith I had in the report. And that's what I caution Raptor fans about. Would it be nice to have Dame as a Canadian citizen? Absolutely. Am I depending on Dame to come to Toronto? Absolutely not.
No, no. And do they have a winning? Because I heard the interesting point was even if he came and it was Pascal going, What are they? What's their team? Do they have a championship team with Scotty Barnes, OG, Dame, Pirtle, and Gary Trent?
Oh, can I please vent about Jakob Pertl? Can I
Yeah,
please
sure.
vent about Jakob Pertl? That is the worst signing in Toronto Raptors history.
Interesting.
Oh no, I stand corrected. That is the second worst because the worst signing in Toronto Raptors history is Rafael Arujo. And if you don't know who Rafael Arujo is, Google it and you'll figure out why he's the worst signing in NBA history,
There was
or at least
another one
Raptor
too.
history.
Yeah, there was another draft pick too. The big European guy that was like number 3 draft pick or something like that. And or maybe that is who I'm thinking of, the big tall guy that you're
It
saying.
was Rafa, yeah, it was
Yeah,
Rafael Arujo.
yeah.
But so I stand corrected. He's the second worst signing in Raptors history. You know why he's the second worst signing in history? You had Jakob Pertl already.
Yeah.
You know what Jakob Pertl is.
They sent
And
him
yet
to Spurs school.
and yet and yet you gave him $80 million to essentially be a backup center.
I think I can defend it a little bit here. I think I can throw some water
Please
on it.
try.
Yeah. So playing under Popovich, players tend to get better. So there's that. Big men are in such short supply, and Toronto especially, they designed their roster to be so anti big men that that combination is really hurting them. And the biggest reason I think it was actually done, uh, and is maybe a smart organizational move if you're going to keep Pascal, is that I think Pascal isn't as normal as some of the other NBA guys and stuff in terms of personality and fit. And I think Pirtle was his like best buddy, like brother almost. Because I remember watching the Raptors inside the gym, or I can't remember what their show's called.
Open court.
Open Court. Yeah. And I remember the early days of watching that and seeing those two come in their rookie season. And they're like kids, and it's like, yeah, I saw Pascal being lost and all these things. I think they signed him half to be like, let's see if that brings Pascal to his best by having his buddy with him.
At
Don't know if
$20
it worked,
million a season.
but like I said, big man, still young in his prime, and just came out of Popovich school. Uh, there's some arguments to be made that it's not the worst. They've made some pretty bad ones in the past, and in a time when you need a young big man that's fairly versatile. Yeah, they could have done worse, I think, but their issue is maybe more complex than Pirtle. But if Dame went there, I think there's even something bigger at play, because it would have to be something enough for Dame to actually go there, and that would mean a second superstar. And who would that be? And how would that work? So who knows?
That's an interesting question.
But if guys want to win and they get to do their thing, kind of like the Kyrie Durant thing, I could see Giannis and Dame saying, Masai and Drake, we just had a great interview or meeting with those two. And we're going to build it here. We're going to use Scotty as our young workhorse dog, and we're going to come take over Toronto. Who knows? It's an
Well, that would
interesting
be
spot for
interesting.
it, because they would finally
That's
make
an
sense why they've been hanging on to nothing for 6, 7, 8 years. Well, not 6, 7, 8. Since the championship, they just keep letting guys walk out the door. Well, playing the long game a little bit, and that's not exciting, but it might pay off. So we'll see with them. But if you had to choose one of those guys, Giannis, Dame, or Luca, to go with as your franchise guy right now, who would it be?
Giannis,
Mm,
without hesitation.
okay, yeah, I
And
think
there
that's
are so many factors that go into that.
mm,
Giannis is the most complete player of the three.
yeah,
He's still relatively young. He's got championship experience, which nobody of those other two can claim.
Yeah.
And I just think Giannis brings more of a leadership role to your team.
Oh man, if the Raptors could get Giannis, the reason that would be amazing, other than the obvious, would be that Scotty Barnes, I think, is sitting on a Giannis body and ability and athleticism. Can he
And he
be
does
like,
great Subway commercials.
yeah, and he's a funny guy with he's got the Giannis energy of being like, if I'm happy and competing and being mentored well, I might be the best player in the freaking world. And when I saw Scotty dunk on Giannis last year, I'll pull up the clip for us at one point. It was like the arena stopped, right? Because he had caught it on one of those elbow things on a run and maybe a foot inside the free throw line, and he just threw it down on Giannis's face out of nowhere, and it was like, okay, right, number 4 draft pick there that has unbelievable hops when he wants to. Uh,
I just realized the 24th is a Tuesday night. We might have to move our podcasting schedule to Monday for before that opening nighter.
or we do a late night one after all the games have finished. We do a opening night extravaganza.
Hold on now, hold on, cause if we're doing that, we have to do it live
Oh yeah,
because I have to be up at 4:30 to go to work. So if we're doing a late night extravaganza, that's got to be a live podcast. That's my only stipulation.
that's fair. I think we'll know by the 24th whether we've got our chemistry and flow down enough to launch a live
I
stream. But I think we do. You know,
I think we're good already, but
yeah,
I think we should reserve the live streams for like special e- events.
yeah, I think so too. Opening night might be one. Lakers Nuggets game is going to be probably the game of the night, or for the whole week. There, that's top notch.
You know what we could do? You know what we could do is we could have a double thing on
Mm,
opening night. We could call the Lakers and Nuggets game, you and I,
yeah,
and then have the At the Buzzer podcast after the game.
nice. I like that. I like that. So you're coming
That's
off
something we could
fresh.
do.
Yeah, I dig. I
It'll
dig.
be it'll be a long night, but hey, what else we got going on?
That's it, right? You know, if Chuck and Shaq can do it, so can we.
So that might be a thing. Maybe we'll call. Mind you, you'll have to have the volume down on your TV.
Oh yeah, no, I usually turn it down anyways. There's only a few, like I got League Pass too, right? And there's only a few home court announcers I ever listened to. Chicago being one. They got a couple guys that are just hilarious. But
Man, did the Raptors ever miss Chuck Swirsky?
oh man, well, God, I don't even what like. Yeah, I don't mind
Onions,
Maddie
baby,
and
onions.
Jack, but everything past Maddie and Jack and is just like, woof. Yeah, not the greatest broadcasting I've ever heard, unfortunately. But that's where we come in.
Yeah, so that might be the plan. Opening night, we'll do the Denver Lakers game
Yeah,
together,
yeah,
and
and
then
then
we'll
we'll
have
do the
end the live stream, open another studio for At the Buzzer right after on that Tuesday night.
that works for me. That works for me. I'll put
What do you
my
think about that?
yeah, man. Yeah. Like I said at the beginning, just kind of getting in the mood for basketball is a good feeling, right? Like back in the day.
That's what I mean. Like you said, you
uh,
always said we should call a game just to see if we can do it. Well,
yeah,
I'm putting you to the test opening night. Lakers Nuggets.
it's as good as you're gonna get. You know, it's gonna be prime time. Everybody's gonna be looking forward to that one and seeing LeBron. Where's he gonna be? It's like he's gonna be looking to make some noise on their banner night. He's just that guy. He's competitive like that, but I don't think Joker's going to be anything but the same. So it's perfect. It's a perfect first game to see where people stand. Like I said, statement game. Um,
So yeah, I think we've got it locked in. Opening night, Nuggets Lakers, and then after the buzzer podcast live.
man, let me ask you this as maybe one of our last questions. Breakout seasons. I have a guy written down here who's a Canadian. Doesn't get
Oh
much
yeah,
talk. His team doesn't get much talk, but they're my second Eastern Conference uh, sleeper pick that I've been thinking about this week, and that's the Pacers and Benedict Mathurin. Uh, don't know a ton about
wow.
him, but I think he's based on what I was just looking at and sort of hearing during the Canadian team stuff is the combination of him and Halliburton is something that nobody's ready for because it's under the radar. But Matherin in particular, I think, is a sleeper that's going to have a breakout year because he's got so much going for him and a team where he's super important like that. Uh,
Can I,
yeah.
I'm gonna shower a current Laker here as we just signed him.
Mm.
I think Christian Wood is gonna help the Lakers immensely. I think he's gonna have a breakout year for the Lakers.
He might be a very deciding factor for them because if he shows up like old Christian Wood, who's checked out and doesn't want to be there, it just it'll be Mavs all over again. But if he shows up like he's looking to
I
do
think if
something,
you I think if you got LeBron riding you all year, you're not showing up like that. LeBron would not tolerate that.
no, yeah, you saw he can, yeah, just send guys out, right? Like just trade them by
Yeah.
himself.
See that's the problem I have with LeBron is he can send guys out, he gets none of the blame.
Yeah,
And yet when they're successful, he gets all the credit. And it it really bothers me. And
it's
he's
good
a
to be the
Laker,
king.
so I have to root for him.
That's why they say it's
I
good to be the king. Yeah, but
because
also it's heavy crown, heavy crown.
the crest on the front is always going to be more important than the name on the back to me.
Yeah, as it should be if
I'm
you're going
just
to
an
be a
old
Lakers
school
fan.
guy that way. Huh?
LeBron has that knock, right? He got his hands all over the GM thing pretty early on with, doing the Miami stuff, and that's always been a bit of a knock, I think, against him of how involved he's been, um,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when he doesn't take a lot of the blame. Uh, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about that without seeing what happens behind closed doors because it is tough if you were to be the silent party where I remember hearing MJ talk in The Last Dance. Man, the conversations between him and that owner manager guy were just gruesome, right? Where he's just like MJ
True,
F off.
but you notice the Bulls confirmed that he never asked for anybody. He never said go get me this guy. He never said
Yeah,
so
and
that separates MJ.
yeah, would he have though if it was modern times when these guys have all this clout and power and
I
influence?
don't think so.
Mm, yeah,
And the reason being is Michael took everything personally.
yeah, he was going to put
Like
it on his back, right?
I remember a story Chuck told uh Sir Charles told about Michael, and they were playing some scrub international team as Team USA, and Chuck Daly was like, "Mike, you got the point guard." He's like, "You got the shooting guard," and then Mike's like, "No, the point guard said something about me. I want to make a statement." And they were playing like some scrub team, like that had no business being on the court. But
Uh-huh.
Mike took it so personally that he mentioned his name that I don't think it would have changed. I don't think Mike would have changed based on the era because that's who Mike is.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. I think that's very true. Kobe probably the same, right? The only issues he ever had was with Shaq because Shaq was such a big personality that it was literally
Well,
impeding
they
his
wanted to be
ability.
better at than each other, right? So that's what that was.
Yeah, and one dude was in the gym at 3 in the morning till 3 at the afternoon before
And the
game.
other was at a Wendy's
Yeah,
till
at
3 in the
best,
morning.
at best.
I'm just kidding, Shaq. Don't sue me. I got no
No,
money.
he had a different lifestyle, right? Like he had a completely different lifestyle that if you were the guy that felt like you were sacrificing more, you'd probably start feeling a little kind of like maybe Giannis is right now, where maybe he feels like he's sacrificing more than his team is, and you never know what's going on behind closed doors. All we can see is the work ethic that shows on the floor, and we see Giannis. He's a frightening, frightening thing to be called a human being. That guy's like I said, he'd be my
Yeah.
pick too for a franchise player right now. Um, you got any off-season moves that were you feel like were any major things? The only big ones were CP3 and Bradley Beal, and maybe the Boston one there with the unicorn. But um,
well, first of all, the unicorn is a non-factor as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, there's a reason he was
Bradley
in Washington.
Beal
Yeah,
Bradley Beal wasted away in Washington, so I'm not worried about that.
yeah,
Now, CP3 is more of a sentimental thing for me. I hope he does well. I want to see him get his ring. I will say that now, even as a Laker fan, I want to see him get his ring. So I hope it works out for CP3.
mm,
And that's all I got to say about that. Unicorn non factor. Bradley Beal just wasted away in Washington. And I hope CP3 gets his ring. Those are my stances on those three.
yeah. So there really hasn't been any major shifts in the whole makeup of the league, really. Hey, it's like,
It rarely is in the NBA.
yeah, yeah, that's true. And
Like, unfortunately, unlike baseball, hockey, and football, well, not even. I guess the only comparable would be the NFL. There's not as much in-season movement in the NBA as there is in other sports.
yeah, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. If there's any specific reason or just particular to the sport.
Um, Lesser amount of players,
Mm,
lesser amount of teams trying to compete.
yeah.
Because let's face it, those top teams are just revenue sharers for the bottom feeders.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think about expansion stuff? Just while we're sort of talking about that organizational expansion, this and that, because I don't think they would take any cities away by the sounds of it. It would be adding two teams.
If they do it properly, then I'm all for it. If they bungle it up, then I don't want it.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
if you're gonna expand, make sure you have a plan. You have the cities picked. You have ownership in place. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row, or don't do it
Mm,
because the league is already watered down enough, and I'm sure I'll take heat for this too. The league is already watered down enough at 30 teams. If you're going to add two more, make sure they're in the right cities. Make sure you got all your ducks in a row because we don't need an even worse NBA than the one we have right now.
100%. Like if you're gonna do it, in my mind, it needs to change the game. Like it needs to uplift the league in a way that is like monumentally changing because if anything, yeah, it's watered down. There's too many teams. There's too many teams that are just content with tanking, middle of the road, just being an event. It's like if you want to go see the Harlem Globetrotters, there's and one mixtapes that I've got, in my closet that we can watch. If I want to see a competitive game, gonna need some guys with incentives to win. And if you have, what is it, 15 teams not even interested in winning, why are you adding two more if it's not going to improve the game? So if they're
Well,
going to do it, yeah.
that's the thing with the old school NBA is there was 28 teams before the Grizzlies and Raptors came in, and I love having the Grizzlies and Raptors, but it seemed like a more condensed league
Hmm.
with fewer players and more competition.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's equity too, because the same teams often at the bottom just because of market size and things like that. But let's say you enter in a Mexico City, who would have more revenue and TV numbers than 5 Lakers teams. It changes the entire money
Would
game.
with the value of the peso though, would that be a thing?
I think it would be in that.
Economics has to economics has to play a role here, man.
I think that's the biggest reason is that there would be just so much money. Like there is a fair bit of money in Mexico, but in just certain parts, right? Um, the amount though is overwhelming. The only reason they wouldn't is the safety and sort of disparity that's going on still there in Mexico City, where there's so much uh, violence and chaos that's sort of unmanaged. But otherwise,
Why two picks for the expansion? If we're going to 32 teams, it would be Seattle, and if we're an Eastern Conference team, I would say you put a team in, I don't know. I'd like to see another team go somewhere that it hasn't been, like
Montreal.
Cleveland or something like that.
What about Montreal, home of Luke Dort, Chris Boucher,
Here,
Matherin?
here's the thing with Montreal, and I'm gonna defend the Expos. I'll defend the Canadians, and I'll defend Montreal expansion to the NBA.
Mm,
They have they have a building in the Bell Center, which could be used for the NBA.
they sell out
But
games.
then you run into logistic nightmares of when do the Canadians play and when does this mythical NBA franchise play? And what happens if they both make the playoffs?
Mm,
Because you have to remember the NBA schedule isn't like the NHL schedule where it's almost every other night in the NHL. Sometimes you're getting 3 days off in the NBA, which I think is an absolute joke as well, especially if you're playing the same team in the same city. You don't need 3 days off.
mm,
But
yeah.
that would be the problem for the mythical Montreal team is they don't have a building or they'd have to share the Bell Center and they wouldn't be the top tenant, so they'd have to get second dibs on the dates.
And with both of those, I feel like they would be average market size teams and stuff, but it wouldn't necessarily compete with any of the big market teams in the sense that the balance of power, like Seattle would still struggle to have a consistent good team, I think. Um, but it doesn't mean I didn't
We
want to see it happen. I'd love to see it happen.
we the Sonics over here.
Man, I've got memories going to the Sonics. It's special memories being able to see them. But yeah, from a basketball fan perspective, I'd love to see it go global at some point. Just because I think if it chooses one of those cities, it would be as big as New York or LA in terms of the balance of power. Like they would just have so much money to spend on things that people would want to go there. And as we see with the Lakers and stuff, it's like, yeah, you can have a good shot if you can attract people that want to play there. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. I think expansion's probably still a few years off, uh, and maybe not the most exciting thing of the league,
What
anyways.
about contraction?
Yeah. I could see a
What
few teams
about
disappearing.
going from 30 to say 24?
Yeah, honestly, I think that would be the best case scenario for basketball and the league is shrink the games and the league size down and create a separate underleague that's maybe a step above the G League because it is almost like that when you're playing a Charlotte or a Portland or it's like you're not playing a team that's competing, you're playing a practice squad. So why don't you put the practice squads like they do in the soccer leagues in the European? I can't remember all the terminology, but like you have to earn your way to be a competitor in this elite league. I'm sorry, but Detroit and certain teams that are just stuck.
Perennially bad.
Yeah, and whoever you want to blame, they're just if you've put in 15, 20 years at the bottom, man, why are you even a team? You know?
Well, I think that's a good spot to end it right there. Why you
Why are
even a
you a
team? That
team?
we ought to make a T-shirt. Why you even a team?
Hey man, that could be the Pelicans
Anyway,
pretty soon. I hope not, but you know, they're on the chopping block, I think.
this has been the At the Buzzer podcast.
Yeah.
G, my co-host, who's got to work on his confidence because he's coming back next week too.
Hey, you bet it, man. And it's always a pleasure to be here and talk some basketball. It's getting me in the mood for some good competitive games coming up here in October.
and
So
you know what's good about that, G? Every episode that goes by, we get a week closer to the tip
heck
off of the
yeah.
NBA season.
Heck yeah. And
And
as it gets
go
closer,
ahead, finish your thought.
you know what I was going to say? We're going to see Dame end up in Toronto, and everything's going to be moving in the right direction finally.
And until next time, may your ego come from a place that keeps you humble. I love how that smile just comes out every time I say that.
Mm.
I'm Mo Money, and as the late great Kobe Bryant said, Mamba out.
Mm.